Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness, your home for gains and brains. And there may be a number of reasons that you are unhappy with your body, but I think the one we're going to talk about here is really the main driver. And when it comes to the word inflation, you have probably heard that a lot in recent weeks. What is inflation in terms of economics? In simple terms, it is the general upward trend of the cost of goods and services. There can be a number of factors, but what is one of the main causes of inflation? Printing a bunch of money that has no real value behind it. And this is a pretty sharp parallel to physique inflation, in which a bunch of fitness content is carbon copied and put out, with, once again, no real value behind it. But you can't really blame them, because amidst a deep sea of other content creators on social media, you need an impressive physique to really stand out, because you, like pretty much everybody else, have no personality, you don't have a whole lot of actual knowledge, and you're just not very interesting. But you can get a bunch of young men to gawk over your body, and that's what really matters. And thus, it's an endless cycle. The crazier the physiques get, the higher the standards become, and this goes on and on. A body that 10 years ago would be considered top tier on a forum is now called mid by teenagers on TikTok. And today, you're not only expected to make 15 years worth of progress in 2 years, you will be laughed at if you don't. And perhaps the best part, you have to do this superhuman feat naturally. So apparently, nobody takes anything. Everybody in the industry is drug-free, except for the very small percentage of guys that are open about it, and then they will receive the same comment over and over, saying how they take gear just to look natty, even though they're pretty clearly taking a lot of gear. And here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is Togi, I believe. Maybe it's pronounced Togi. I'm not entirely sure, but he is open about taking gear, and this is a quick little clip he posted on Instagram. And just as I suspected, you go to the comments of this post, and can you imagine the top 2 comments? All that to look natty, and then still looks natty. They both have over 300 hearts. And of course, neither of these guys have remotely close to the size that he does, even though I'm sure they would convince themselves of that mentally somehow. And you can scroll down the comments, and they keep saying how, oh, that's natty attainable, bro. I'm gonna get there very soon. Anybody can do that with X, Y, and Z. And if that wasn't good enough, we can go to this guy right here, who says, this is a 3-year transformation. All natty, bro. And I will let you guys be the judge of that. But as you can imagine, there is an endless amount of comments saying how he is just that dedicated, bro. His genetics are just that good, bro. Anybody who even questions it is just a jealous hater, bro. So he must have access to some pretty high quality supplements. And really quickly on supplements, because I get asked about those, one of the supplements that I would consider a no-brainer is creatine. The creatine I've been using myself lately is from Tasty Gains. These are in the form of gummies. You don't have to remember to bring a spoon with you. You don't need to have water on hand. You don't have to worry about it mixing in if you add it to your shake. It is not gritty or clumpy, but my favorite flavor here is the pineapple mango. The texture of these gummies, you could compare it to a Sour Patch Kid or a fruit snack, and I like to take these right before my workout. If you've never taken creatine, its main benefits are boosting endurance during training, it's going to assist in recovery, and it's going to give you some added fullness to your muscles because it draws water to them. And Tasty Gains is third-party tested to ensure 1 gram per gummy, and they are made in the USA, in the state of Arizona. So if you want to give these creatine gummies a try, I will drop the link in the description box down below. So now let's dive into some examples of this phenomenon. And we will start here with Zyzz. Zyzz was openly on a lot of gear, especially somebody with his genetics. He was very naturally skinny. This physique right here, by modern standards, if you admitted to taking gear, you would be laughed at. Especially photos like this one here. He was not carrying a ton of size. But I try to explain to you guys, man, the average person on gear, not only do they have noticeably less muscle than this, they are probably 20% to 25% body fat. Like, you would never guess that they take PEDs. A lot of them you would question if they even lift. And next is Jeff Seid, who I believe came onto the scene around the same time as Zyzz, maybe a little bit after. By any metric, this is an elite physique, alright? I mean, he's clearly well developed, he's got big full pecs, he's got the V-taper, the Cobra lats, serratus is visible abs, his arms look good, forearms look good. I mean, on visual alone, there is nothing you can really critique here, just as a general person. 99% of guys watching this content, or any type of fitness content, would be elated to look like this one day. And here are his stage shots from the 2014 Mr. Olympia. And on the topic of bodybuilding itself, competitions, that is one of the biggest drivers of the physique inflation. Because for all of the hate that bodybuilding gets, everybody says, oh, these dumb juice heads, and they're just narcissists, and bodybuilding is gay, all this stuff. I mean, bodybuilders at the end of the day are who a lot of people who get into the fitness niche, that's who they're looking up to. And those are the physiques, in at least some form, that they are striving for. Even if they know deep down they're never going to get to the level of somebody like Chris Bumstead, they want to get as close as they can. Anybody who has done bodybuilding can tell you this. You're never going to look as good on stage as you do in the photos leading up to the stage. Now, his abs are not looking as tight as they should, and keep in mind, this physique now, in terms of even the men's physique division, he was at the Olympia 10 years ago with this. Today, he very well could struggle to win an overall at a local show, which would allow him to go to nationals, which if he won the nationals overall, that would allow him to get his pro card. So from that aspect alone, you can see how much the standards have changed, because this physique now, as impressive as it is in its own right, like I said, in the context of bodybuilding, this is laughable today. He is probably 10%-ish body fat here, if I had to guess, just off the top of my head. The average guy is going to fight his entire life to get to a legitimate 10% body fat like this. So for context, here is the current reigning, I think 3 or 4 time now, men's physique champion Ryan Terry. Now let's compare him to Jeff. You can see that Terry has noticeably sharper abs. He is definitely leaner overall. The size, there is a noticeable difference. I mean, that's something that all of these divisions run into with the NPC IFBB. They introduce these new divisions because they don't want everyone to just have to be a mass monster. And then they will start with, okay, this division has less size, less freakiness, so-called. Then after a few years, they just reward the freakier and freakier people, and the division becomes more and more extreme. Now this image here is from the 2016 Olympia. This is still men's physique. You can even see the differences here, how much bigger these guys are than Jeff Seid was in the picture we looked at from just 2 years prior. And this one might be even crazier, because this is classic physique in 2016 at the Olympia, the inaugural year that they introduced the division. You can see these are the top 5. This guy's physique is off the charts by any conventional metric. He really has that old school golden era look, I would say, with bigger legs than pretty much anybody from back in the day. We're going to look at them too in a moment. But you take this photo of him, and then you can compare it to Chris Bumstead right here. The modern classic guys have way bigger legs than the dudes in the so-called golden era did. In terms of the body fat too, Chris is peeled to the bone. I mean, he might be a legitimate 5% body fat. And compare that to Danny Hester back here. He is obviously lean, but in terms of the modern standard of classic physique and bodybuilding in general, no matter the division, this conditioning is not going to cut it. So right here is Breon Ainsley, same division, classic physique. He won on the left side in 2018, and then this was him in 2020. You can see that he's noticeably bigger on the right, and I think you could argue that he has a more aesthetically pleasing shape on the left. That's something that comes with the territory, man. I mean, if you want to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, unless you have elite genetics, I mean, you're going to lose some of that flow and that structure that comes with just adding more and more muscle mass. But let's get off the modern era and go back to the golden era, because those are still widely revered as the best physiques by the masses. And here we can look at Frank Zane. And this physique, again, is a perfect example of out of this world being realistic. You compare this to modern bodybuilding standards, and even general influencer standards by today, I mean, if you just want to be a general influencer today in the fitness scene, don't even have to be a bodybuilder, don't get extremely shredded, anything like that. I'm not kidding, guys. If you put this exact physique in a poll on Instagram today, and just crop out his head so people can't recognize that it's Frank Zane, you would say, is this physique Natty attainable? With the general masses that consume this content, easily over 50% would say yes. I think it could be closer to 75 to 80%. I mean, let alone these pictures here. This one on the left is the 1968 Mr. Universe. This is Natty attainable, not even questioned by anybody today. And then this one is 10 years later, and he's obviously made progress. He's added size, he's gotten leaner. I mean, this one here, man, there's guys on Instagram right now and on TikTok, everywhere else. They have a physique that is similar to this. They claim natural, and some people will call them out on it, but in general, it's going to be widely accepted. But this physique right here on the left, man, these teenagers now on the internet, they think you're going to get to this size all naturally within a handful of years. Some of these guys online that I've seen, they will think this is attainable within 2 to 3 years naturally. This level of muscle mass. For the average guy. And here is Frank at the 1979 Mr. Olympia. And I would say in terms of the upper body, he's probably the equivalent of the modern men's physique guys. Give or take. And the men's physique guys, it's always joked about how they skip legs because of the board shorts. A lot of those guys do have very big quads, but anybody with big quads can look like they don't have them if their thighs are covered up. So even looking at the guy earlier, Ryan Terry, the current men's physique Olympia champion, he has bigger quads now in the division that really doesn't even judge legs than Frank Zane did back in the golden era. Also, one quick note about Arnold, because he's still revered as the greatest of all time, because his upper body, even by today's standards, is pretty insane. But can we talk about how Arnold's legs are not proportionate enough to his upper body? I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that, I'm just giving you my input. I mean, depending on the pose in the picture you look at, Arnold's arms looked the same size as his legs a lot of the time. But I think that's why so many guys look up to him in that regard. Besides the movie star status and the fame and everything, of course that plays into it. But no matter how much lip service that legs get on the internet, the average guy, even if they're willing to take a bunch of gear and all this other stuff, they don't care about their legs that much. But here you can see a lineup of the bodybuilding division in the 1980 Mr. Olympia. 1980 was over 40 years ago at this point, which I was not alive back then, but even saying that out loud is kind of crazy. You saw the current Olympia this year, they had like, what, 60 or 70 classic physique guys? The division's gotten so popular. I don't think any of these guys would place within even the top half of those competitors. But let's go even further back in time and look at Steve Reeves. And once again, we can see this is a physique that the average guy is dreaming of on a regular basis. This physique today, with this level of muscle mass, his definition, his body fat, everything. Now, he does look very good in the side pose especially, but this general look here, if you have him in normal lighting, without a pump, just a general candid photo, he would be called not only mid by modern standards, you'd have a segment of people in the comment section that are calling him DYEL. And here's another good example, because the masses today think you can achieve this level of development and muscularity. They think this could be 1 to 2 years worth of progress when you just started training. That's how long they've been lied to and gaslit about this topic. Mind you, Reeves had already been lifting for numerous years up to this point, and he's got solid genetics on top of that. And we'll finish up here with a great example of kind of everything we've talked about. This is Scott Herman. He was huge on YouTube a decade or so ago, but he's been around in the space for a long time. But this is a great picture because it is not good lighting, it's not angled, he's not really flexing, he's just standing here mid-sentence, he's talking. And he's not extremely lean, he's probably mid-teens body fat, roughly. He could even be a bit more than that. But this right here, man, in terms of general candid, you look in the mirror, this is what you see, or you, God forbid, open the front camera, and this is what you see. This guy's been training for, I believe, over 2 decades at this point. I mean, like I said, man, even a lot of people that comment now, especially all these godforsaken, brain-dead teenagers, they would see this physique and be like, bro, that's not impressive at all. Oh, you could do that within a year, all natty, average guy. But this level of progress right here, I mean, this would be laughed out of the building today. If he came online right now and was one of these new fitness accounts, and he said, I've been training for 20 years and finally decided to pass on my knowledge to the younger generation, or whatever it's going to be. Laughed out of the building, looking like this. And they think their favorite so-called natural, who's been training for 2 years and is already competing at the national level in terms of bodybuilding, they're completely clean. They don't take anything. Like, that's what they expect nowadays. That's where we are. And we didn't even go into the women's side of things, because those standards are just as crazy. Maybe for another day. But what are the practical solutions here? Well, you can't really stop seeing this content because it's everywhere, but social media is what this really comes down to. Because for all of this stuff that you see continually online, that's how it goes, because the people that look the craziest are going to get boosted in the algorithm and get a bunch of followers. That's why you see them in the first place. The amount of people you actually see in your day-to-day life that are anything close to this, even regulars in the gym that have been going for a long time, nowhere near it. And also keep in mind the Photoshop, the Lightroom, the filters, all of the editing, and the manipulation of the angles, all this other stuff. So whenever you see these photos and your first reaction is just like, oh my god, I'm not close to that, the person you're looking at, they might not be as close to that as you may think either. So I'd say in general, Instagram is the worst when it comes to this. I've not been on TikTok in a long time, I'm sure it's over there as well. But Instagram seems to be the biggest culprit, from what I can tell. I'd also say as well, if you are struggling with body dysmorphia, and you don't want it to get worse, do not do bodybuilding. Do not compete, even if it's for fun, because everybody starts out as just for fun, then 5 years later, they caught the bug, and they're in too deep, and they're competing every year, and it's their entire life. That's just how it goes, man, if you're a competitive type of person, even if it's only with yourself. But you do bodybuilding now, I can speak from experience here. You're going to see the people that do look really crazy, and you'll see them up close. Like backstage, you're going to be on stage next to them, and you're just like, this is insane. Whether you like it or not, your brain has made that your new standard. And even if it's something that realistically you're never going to get to, you're going to beat yourself up for not getting to it. So being able to pull yourself out of that mentality is very, very hard. Some would say it's impossible, which I understand that argument. But you need to get to a place where you are comfortable with yourself, no matter the phase. I put it like this: if you somehow lost your access to the gym and just working out in general, you couldn't even do calisthenics at home, whether it's a major injury, sickness, or whatever the case might be. If you could no longer train, and your body is going to morph into whatever it morphs into, would you be able to accept and be okay with yourself? Even if you were to snap your fingers tomorrow and wake up and be very overweight. I'm not saying you can accept it and just be like, I'm never going to change, but would you be able to be okay with yourself, who you are in that state? Very skinny, very obese, sorta jacked, very jacked, anywhere on that spectrum that you lie. No matter what your physique looks like, could you be happy with yourself as a person and be able to navigate the world and go to work and go to school and interact with people and do all the things that you do as a human? Would you be able to do those things without the obsession over what your body looks like? I think that's the ultimate test. And a lot of you guys now are kind of living that because you're not happy with your physique and you're striving for better, but you beat yourself up because you're not getting there, one, nearly as quickly as you've been led to believe, and two, to the degree that you've been led to believe. And if you're at the point that this is really bothering you, I think a social media detox is the best solution. And if you need to kind of get out of gym culture in general, I wouldn't blame you. If you just want to go to the gym on your own, maybe delete your Instagram, or just have one for like family and friends, and not just mindlessly scroll through the fitness content, which I know it's hard to do. But the only real way to detach yourself, it's kind of ironic, it is the only way that you can, but it's very easy. Just put the phone down. And if you're not going to put the phone down, which we know is not going to happen, I guess at least delete the app. But this is ultimately a never-ending battle, and I think you have to get to a point where you can just enjoy the process for what it is. You're not chasing the end goal. You just enjoy the lifestyle itself. the training, the keeping track of your diet, and then the cards are going to fall where they may. You may decide to take this path or that path, or all of these variables that come with it, but you need to get to a point where you can derive your sense of worth and your confidence from other things besides how you look. So much like High School Musical, we're all in this together, but we're also all making it worse for each other. Good luck. But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out Tasty Gains down below. Stop wasting your time in the gym and in the kitchen. Grab your training program down below, as well as my nutrition guide, the Body Composition Bible. Check out testimonials on my site for those. If you want to get in direct contact with me, the best way to do so is on Patreon. You also get lifetime access to our community Discord server there, and you can also inquire about consultation calls or full online coaching if interested too. Check the description box. And I will catch you guys next time.